for Section 8. We haven't done underwriting Zoom for a while. I mean, not Zoom, but live stream. But this is going to be good. So I've been looking at condos in North Carolina, and I got sent a property today in 27407. And just so I can zoom out for you guys, this is right in Greensboro on the southwest side, kind of right in in the middle between Charlotte and Raleigh Durham area. Now, this area is growing a lot, so I always like to kind of pay close attention to areas that are growing. So I got sent this deal, which is a two-bed, two-bath condo. I like two baths because always two bathrooms are pretty good. And this one's actually looks pretty good. I mean, this is relatively rent ready. I mean, I don't really have much renovation for this property. So here's what we're gonna do. Let's look up a few things. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look up for you what the market rent is first. Okay. Now, typically, first I will go to HUD FMR, but I'm gonna show you a little trick today. Now, on affordablehousing.com, when I go to the owner section and I go to the market rent estimator, I can plug in the address and I plug in the bedroom count. And normally I care most about the number on the far right. And in here, you're going to see that the average rent for a two-bedroom property in Greensboro within for 7 units within a 0.24 mile radius is $991. Great. Okay. Let me note that. But you can see how in the county, in the city, and the zip, it's a lot higher to 1250. Interesting, right? So seeing that it's that far below, maybe it's not a desirable area. I'm not sure yet. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look up, let's look up Greensboro, and you do this with any authority or any housing authority 2025 payment standards. And you're gonna see right here, oh, this is nice, right? Because now AI overview is actually pulling it up. That's kind of nice, but I always check out two websites. So it says it's 1247 for two bedrooms. Now, what you're gonna want to find out is that in that housing authority, does the payment standards include utilities? Typically, it does, but that's generally the rule. But sometimes there are exceptions, right? And you can see that when you look at this property, you can see that here's your payment standards. And who knows, right? Sometimes you don't know if this is updated. Sometimes the housing authorities don't necessarily update their housing authorities on time. So a call, a check, if especially if you have a relationship with the housing authority, it's really, really great if you're kind, right? Please, when you call, be kind, thank them for what they're doing because guess what? They're probably understaffed, all right? They're probably overworked because they probably have thousands of people on the waiting list. So just be very, very mindful of that. All right. So now that I see that my two-bedroom payment standard is 1247, I want to show you one more thing, right? Let me show you reasonableness. Now, in the past, I would show people reasonable. See, this is very important. Greensboro Housing Authority determines whether the rent to the owner is reasonable. So, could you underwrite with rent at 1247? Yes, you could. But you really want to make sure that you can provide the comps to support that the rent is 1247. And if you base it just off of this, then this essentially states that the more reasonable rent is $991 because that's the lower of the two, especially when you compare it to the payment standards, right? And normally with payment standards, again, not applicable to every housing authority, if you don't include utilities, you have to subtract the utility for, let's say the allowance was $50 for electricity for a two-bedroom condo. Well, you got to take 1247 and you got to subtract 50. So now all of a sudden, you do not provide electricity. Your maximum rent now is going to be 1197, right? So simple as that. But always verify with your housing authority because every housing authority operates a little differently. Okay. So, given that, I'm going to show you how I will underwrite using $991 as the rent, but I'll also show you using 1247 as the rent. Now, again, this property has been pretty turnkey. So, I'm going to write down some numbers here. So, let me go to B4. I mean, yep, 125, 500, plug in numbers right there. For my rehab, I don't really have any rehab on this property. Don't need a new AC unit. I'm gonna delete that. I like to put in high pressure flush toilets. That's my own personal preference because I have it at my rentals right now, and I've never gotten a clogged toilet call, so I intend to keep it that way. Let me zero out that. I Was there a washer dryer in here already? There is not, and generally I don't like providing appliances, but in this case I'll just leave it in here for now just so I can have something. I'm gonna zero out the flooring. I'm assuming I don't need to do any painting on this home. So I got a little bit of buffer here in terms of I got $4,000 just putting aside just in case of a rainy day. Great. Now, if my rent is $991, I'm gonna plug that in into B16. All right. Now, for my taxes and my insurance, I'm gonna get that right from the Redfin payment calculator for now, right? So $61 in taxes, 61, and then my homeowner insurance is gonna equal to 49 times 1.2. Again, just adding a 20% premium because typically insurance company view your asset as a riskier asset if you're using it as a rental. Hence why I'm putting in an extra 20% premium by multiplying it by 1.2. All right. Then my HOA is 248. That's pretty expensive there. What do you need to like? You want to put the rainbow on? Okay. You got it. Color the rainbow. Good job. Okay, wait. Touch rainbow. Okay. First done. Okay. All done.
I'll pick a song.
Pick a song. Which one? This one or this one or this one?
I like.
This one. Okay. Good job. Okay. Good night. Okay. I love you. I love you so much. All right. Sorry, guys. All right. Let's go back to the maintenance. So I got 5% for maintenance. So this is something that's so crucial, right? Even though that you're buying a condo, the HOA typically has covers your big expenses, such as some plumbing stuff on the exterior and also your roof. So you have slightly lower maintenance. So that's why I'm only putting aside 5%. But it should not be zero, right? Because something breaks eventually, right? Your HVAC, especially if it's an individual unit type of unit, if you have a water heater for that type for that individual unit, I don't know if that's the case. I have to find out later. But I'm just underwriting at a very rough scale, right? I got 8% for property management right now, and I got 5% for vacancy expenses. So let's go here and go to my next set of details here. So now if I let's say I do 25% down on this property, right? My down payment is going to equals to my B4 times my down payment percentage of 25%. That equals 31,375. So in K6, my financed amount is going to equals to my B4, which is my asking price, minus my down payment percentage of $31,375. That gives me a $94,000 financing amount. And let's do 7.5% right now for the purchase. Okay, because I think that's what I just got quoted. If that is the case, right? After all your expenses, right? Remember, your property is going to be empty eventually, right? So that's why I'm leaving at 5%. I mean, you could probably lower it to 3% because typically the resident will probably stay here a little bit longer, right? And your two bed 27407 payment standard 27407 payment standard is 1247. This is a two bedroom. Again, I'm noting down all these things because my partners already know how to analyze deals, so this makes life a little bit easier. This was 991. I'll probably plug in the numbers in it later. I don't want to bore you with the details right now. So if I bought this property as a two bedroom and I rent it out for $991, right? My cash flow per month is negative 193. So I'd be losing $193 a month. That's a negative 6.6% return. Assuming I bought this property for 125,500 with a 39 call 4,000 3960 rehab, right? Just as a rainy day. Okay, so now I know my numbers. And in my opinion, this is probably not ideal, right? Because in my opinion, I am looking for 5 to 10% cash on cash return, right? This is a long-term hold, just a long-term piggy bank. That doesn't meet my return criteria. Again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. Just simply showing you how I approach looking at a deal at a very high level very quickly. Now, what if you have comps that support a rent of 1247. Okay. Well, look what just happened. Now I just broke even after all my expenses. So let me write this one down. 1247. I cash flow $22. Call that point. That's a 0.7% return. Assuming I bought this property for 125,500. That's a 3960 rehab, 25% down, 7.5% interest rate. Okay, great. Now, what if my target return is 6%? What do I need to buy this property for? Well, let's do 8% actually. If I lower this to 100 grand, now I'm at 6.4. So if I buy this property for 95 grand, now I'm at 8%. Great. Right? Depending on the S&P averages, maybe it's 4% annually that I'm doubling it. Maybe that's a good return. Again, you have to decide what your return is based on your risk tolerance, right? You got to decide what's worth your time because I think it was 0% is like, is it really worth your time going all this effort to get the property rented, blah, 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 for 0% return? I don't know what your situation is. Maybe you're just trying to test into it, right? It's completely up to you. But for me, to get an 8% return, I might have to buy this property for 95 grand after all my expenses, right? $95,000, 3960, 25% down, 7.5% interest rate. So again, that's assuming 1247 for my rent, because now I can cash for $181 a month. And that gives me a 7.9% return. Okay. Now let's say I'm still trying to get about 8% return. What if the interest rates drop by a whole percentage point? And this is what you got to figure out and what you got to track. Because if this goes down to 6.5%, well, now all of a sudden, maybe if your thesis or your hypothesis is that interest rates will go back down, maybe by the time you renovate you buy this property, you get it rented out, and then you're trying to refinance it down the road, you might be willing to buy it for 102, 102, assuming your return criteria is still 8%. So you can see how interest rates drive your purchase price, right? Because all that happened was your interest rate dropped from 7.5 to 6.5%. And now my willingness to pay goes up by $7,000 just to achieve the relatively same return, my cash and cash return of 8%. Because now I'm able to cash flow $196 a month after all my expenses, right? I'm putting away money because guess what? You know something's gonna break one day, right? So you gotta put that aside. You gotta have that put aside. So that might be a 6.5% return. Okay, good. I mean, that might be 8% return, assuming 6.5% interest rate. And that's something that you really, really have to pay attention to because you gotta understand what's driving interest rate, right? Because as interest rates go down, your monthly payment goes down. So that drives up affordability and that ultimately drives up your willingness to pay. Hence, the prices go up. That's why you saw this compression, this stage of all these prices shooting up during the recession. I mean, during the COVID pullback, because there weren't enough homes and interest rates were near rock bottom. And it was just a crazy time in real estate, right? But guess what? The interest rates on your 30-year mortgage interest rates are heavily affected by two factors. One is the interest rate on the 10-year treasury yield, and the second part is the spread between the 10-year yield and your 30-year mortgage interest rates. Now, historically, that spread was probably like 1.5 to 2%, but it went as high as 3%. So as interest rates get a little bit more predictable, right? If the market have a little bit more certainty, that spread narrows. But when there's uncertainty, which we literally just saw in the last 2, 3 months with all the tariff conversations, that spread widened again because of uncertainty. So pay attention right now. This is very headline driven in the market. If there are announcements of trade deals that are happening, that might make the market feel a little bit more comfortable. So your spread between the 10-year yield and your 30-year mortgage interest rates get a little bit more narrow. Pay attention because when this happens, it could happen overnight. It could drop like half a point overnight. And that drastically affects what a deal, quote unquote, to you might look like, right? Let's go back over here. Let's go to 7%. So I went to 7%. All of a sudden, from 102, I might be going to 99 grand. Great. Still about 7.8. So literally overnight, if you went through this scenario, right? Assuming everything else stayed constant again, a 7% interest rate, I will cash for 186 a month, 1247 rent, two-bedroom property. But now guess what happened? Overnight, if my interest rates drop by half a percentage, my willingness to pay for this property, assuming everything else stayed constant, went to 3960. Wild, right? And obviously the 3960 could be used for your closing costs, blah, blah, blah. But I was just using rough numbers, right? So depending on what your closing costs are, make sure you add them in. I can do another exercise later with it. The whole point of this exercise was just to show you how to adjust the numbers up and down to figure out what's a deal for you. So hopefully that was helpful, everybody. My goal is for you to go and do this on your own, right? If you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the get deal analysis tool, plug in your name, email, your phone number. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. And here's my hope. My hope is that you do exactly what I did today, right? Analyze the same spreadsheet using the same property, even, right? I showed you what I got sent today, and start your own YouTube channel. Because at some point, someone's going to ask you, hey, why do you think this is a deal? Well, you can say at that point in time, hey, I know that this is a deal because I've been looking at properties for the past 595 days. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. And I'm so confident that your kids are going, they're going to want to learn how did you analyze this deal that we just did for the past 60 minutes? Look how fast we did that. And when you can go into the replay using the same spreadsheet, using the same property, and analyze it, guess what? That's one rep. And all it takes is just 18 minutes a day for 365 days. And you will be better at it than 95, 99% of America at analyzing deals. I think that'll give you so much confidence in so that you know what you're doing. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Friday. I know it's late on Friday night, but I want to stay consistent. There's no excuses. We're going to keep doing this together. All right. Have an amazing Friday, everybody. I hope you spend some quality time with your family and friends today and this weekend because that's what life is all about. And I cannot thank you enough for caring about affordable housing. Without people like you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So I appreciate you all so much. Have an amazing day. I'll see you tomorrow for day 596. Have a good one, everybody.